Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. A Russian attack at a military base in western Ukraine has left 35 people dead. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari explains why many are concerned that the Russian invasion could lead to World War III. And the Brier wrapped up a successful tournament in Lethbridge. BCN's Micah Quinn has the details on who won the Canadian Men's Curling Championship.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Talks between Russia and Ukraine ended without a breakthrough. Ukrainian officials said, however, that they will resume tomorrow following a technical pause. Russian forces continue to pound away at Kyiv and other cities, but a convoy of 160 civilian cars did leave Municipal along a designated humanitarian route. Previous attempts to evacuate civilians and deliver humanitarian aid to the city of 430,000 was thwarted by continued fighting. Russian missiles hit a military base in western Ukraine on Sunday, killing at least 35 people. It was a facility that served as a crucial hub for cooperation between Ukraine and the NATO countries supporting its defense.
30 ракет на одну тільки Львівську область. Внаслідок обстрілу Міжнародного центру миротворчості та безпеки загинуло.
Now, the Ukrainian President Zelensky is also urging NATO to create a no-fly zone over Ukraine. The attack in western Ukraine was very close to Poland, which is a NATO ally. Some are quite concerned that if Russia ends up rolling into Poland, more countries would potentially get involved. Thousands of American troops are already stationed in the Baltic states and are on standby. I asked our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, would we potentially see World War III?
Once this did escalate, there were 11,000 troops that were sent over to Poland, and in addition to 5,000 that were already there, and an additional 500 have been sent over the last 10 days. So you do have a nice, sizable, force there, and more than anything, they would get there if they needed to get there, if they needed to invoke Article 5 of NATO in protecting a NATO nation.
Lisa will have the latest from the Russian-Ukrainian war coming up in the second half of our newscast. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris says she emphasized to Western allies on a recent trip to Europe that the greatest strength we share right now is unity.
And that unity and our collective resolve has been strengthened, of course, since Russia's re-invasion of Ukraine and Putin's war. Russia's invasion threatens not just Ukraine's democracy, it threatens democracy and security across Europe, and by extension, when democracy is threatened anywhere, it threatens us all.
Brent Renault, an acclaimed American filmmaker who traveled to some of the most dangerous corners of the world, was killed Sunday after Russian forces opened fire on his vehicle in Ukraine. Journalist Juan Arredondo was also wounded in the attack.
A journalist arrived here at the Kiev hospital. He was injured. He told us that he was shot at a Russian checkpoint at the Rcmp bridge. He was with a colleague. He told us that he was with a colleague, and the colleague lied down on the street because he was shot at the neck.
Tell me, please, what is your name?
Juan.
Juan? Where are you from?
The U.S.
U.S. What happened to you?
We crossed the first bridge in Irpin. We were going to film other refugees leaving, and we got into a car. Somebody offered to take us to the other bridge, and we crossed a checkpoint, and they start shooting at us. So the driver turned around, and they kept shooting. It's two of us. My friend is Brent Renault, and he's been shot and left behind.
Ukrainian President Zelensky visited a military hospital on Sunday, hoping to boost morale of soldiers who were wounded during the recent Russian attacks.
Добрий день, бажаю здоров'я. Як ви, хлопці? Хорошо. Та не хорошо. Хорошо. Нормально? Нормально. Молодці, дуже круто. Міцні хлопці. Давно? Нещодавно. Нещодавно? 5 числа. Ні, 6, мабуть. 6. Чим можемо допомогти? Да. Супер. Дякую.
Medical equipment and supplies for the Samaritan's Purse Emergency Field Hospital in Lviv were airlifted to Poland. All of the aid has been unloaded and is now on its way to Ukraine. The field hospital is being set up and should be receiving new patients very soon.
I've been in Ukraine where Samaritan's Purse has been setting up a field hospital to help with the fighting that's been happening there. There's a lot of great need, and we're going to do more. But thankfully, what you see right here, our DC-8 cargo plane has just landed, and we're beginning offload of the needed materials to finish the setup of our hospital. But also, we're going to start an outpatient clinic there at the railway station in Lviv. These are people coming up with hundreds of thousands each day, desperate to flee the fighting. There's great need. Women are giving birth to children on the train. There's dehydration. It's freezing. There's cold weather injuries. They need help now. And Samaritan's Purse is responding quickly. We're fortunate to have assets like this to let us get anywhere in the world within hours to set up these hospitals. But we can't do it without you. We need your prayers. We need your support. Pray for the safety of our team on the ground, but also pray for peace in Ukraine, a peace that only Jesus Christ can bring about. We do this because we love our neighbors in the ditch, and this is what God's commanded us to do. So thank you.
BC Premier John Horgan says his province will offer support to host Ukrainian refugees fleeing the ongoing war with Russia. Horgan made the comments after he met with Canadian-Ukrainian leaders.
We all stand ready to open our hearts and our homes to the refugees who will be coming, but there are challenges, and we were identifying issues around translation, issues around trauma counseling for the children. Women and children are likely to be the bulk of the people coming to British Columbia. And also how we as a government, immigration not a primary responsibility of the province, but of course none of that matters in times of crisis. And there are a variety of ways that you can help. We'll be standing up a 1-800 number to take calls because, quite frankly, the modestly sized Ukrainian organizations, whether they be in our major centers or in regional hubs, are overwhelmed by the generosity and good wishes of British Columbians, and we need to manage that.
Meanwhile, here in Lethbridge, teachers and staff members at Our Lady of Assumption School have rallied together and are showing their support for the people of Ukraine. During their Spiritual Development Day, staff members donated to the school's charity of choice, Development and Peace, with the funds going towards humanitarian efforts overseas. An official with the school says they're grateful to be able to donate.
I think a lot of it comes down to do what you can with what you have and where you are. And if what we can do as a staff is just take up a collection, is just create awareness among our students, and certainly I know that all the teachers in an age-appropriate way have discussed the conflict with their students, I think at least it makes people feel like they are doing something.
And so far, this school has raised just over $300 for the people of Ukraine. The 2022 Tim Hortons Brier ended with a huge bang on Sunday night. Team Wildcard 1 and skip Brad Gushu pulled out a narrow win against Kevin Cooey and Team Alberta, 9-8. As Micah Quinn explains, this is the fourth Brier win for Gushu and his team in the past 6 years.
It means a lot that if this is our last season, that we're going to go out with all four of us.
An emotional Brett Gallant recalled the 9-8 Tankard win alongside teammates Brad Gushu and Jeff Walker. The Wildcard team based out of St. John's played short-handed with a three-man roster as teammate Mark Nichols was forced to leave the final weekend games due to COVID.
Brett and Jeff, the way they adapted to the new positions and the way they played is incredible. I'm very proud of them, and this is pretty amazing. I never thought this would happen when Mark went down. So, a bit of a shock for us. Like when I made the last shot, I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. Like it just, we just felt we'd go out and literal cliche, and I hate cliches and I apologize, but just do that one shot at a time and see what happened. And, we started adding them up and making a bunch in a row. And, to come away with this, it's pretty amazing.
Gushu and his team are now $108,000 richer, and Kevin Cooey and Team Alberta grabbed second place with a cool $60,000.
This one was ours for the taking. We were playing good. We had the hammer. We got off to, a steal of two. Kept fighting back. Obviously it's great to be curling again in our home province in front of all our friends and family. But this one will probably sting more than the other final losses.
The attendance for the Tim Hortons Brier at the NMAX Centre generated over 74,000 fans.
Everyone was thrilled about having it come to Lethbridge, for community, for the businesses, to showcase Lethbridge. I heard a number of comments about how Lethbridge looked great on TV.
On top of the 2022 Brier win, Brad Gushue also won an Olympic bronze medal in Beijing a few weeks ago. Gushue will return as Team Canada at the 2023 Brier. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
And by the way, Brad Gushue is also off to the World Men's Curling Championship in Las Vegas, April 2nd through the 10th. The 5 Days for the Homeless campaign is on now until March the 18th. This year, the event will be a virtual affair. Organizers say it's a way to educate people about our city's homeless population. University of Lethbridge students sleep outside in cardboard boxes for 5 days and try to show what the city's less fortunate have to deal with on a daily basis.
So we give up access to a home, so a shelter, as well as a warm bed, constant use of like electricity, constant like social media or like any sort of accessible electronic use, even the constant access to meals. So we give all that up throughout the week. We sleep outside in our sleeping bags. We make our makeshift houses really for the week, and we wear our one set of clothes to classes, and we still have to do all of our classes, everything.
The money raised from the campaign will go towards supporting Woods Homes and the work they do to help out youth who are experiencing homelessness. The team is hoping to raise around $3,000 for this year's campaign. One of the main organizers of the Freedom Convoy, which took over our nation's capital for close to a month, was welcomed home in Medicine Hat. Tamara Litch, who was released from jail and who promised not to return to Ottawa, was greeted by about 100 of her supporters on Sunday, most of whom offered hugs and sang "O Canada." That's so nice to see. By the way, residents of Medicine Hat can now sit down and enjoy a cup of joe with a member of the police as part of the Coffee with a Cop initiative. At a variety of different locations from now until April the 9th, you can sit down with a police officer and have a conversation about just about anything. Medicine Hat's Chief of Police, Mike Warden, says nothing's off the table, and the feedback they've received so far has been pretty good.
So we've told people, you bring anything you'd like, and we are in a recruiting phase right now. So we've ensured that some of our recruiters are there. If someone has questions about the process and maybe some of the hiring processes, if they have, we've had people come and talk about photo radar tickets they've received and talked about concerns in the community, all different things. They are happy to meet us, obviously, and we're happy to meet them, but it seems to be pretty positive.
Now, there's no need to pre-register, and Chief Warden says the cup of coffee will be on them. We also reached out to the Lethbridge Police Service to see if they're holding a similar initiative, but as of right now, there are no plans to bring it back because of the pandemic. A number of cities across Canada are still dealing with an opioid crisis. Sadly, many who are addicted to drugs turn to a life of crime to help feed their habit. We recently chatted with Lethbridge Police Chief Shaheen Medizadeh about the opioid crisis here in our city and how the federal drug court is having a huge impact helping people turn their lives around.
Right now, we have 8 people who have gone through the program and many more who are on the list to get into that program. And the 8 people who've actually gone in the program, we haven't seen them again. It's working effectively for them. These courts actually are providing people an opportunity to get out of that lifestyle, but more importantly, providing them with skills, housing, etc., to get them on the right track in life.
Chief Medizadeh will also discuss how the pandemic has affected his officers with increased cases of PTSD. That Q&A is coming up later in our broadcast. The Fort Mcmurray Lacklubish by-election is coming up on Tuesday. The UCP's Brian Jean, who says he's gunning for the leadership of the party, is going up against Paul Hinman, leader of the Wild Rose Independence Party, and NDP candidate Ariana Mancini. Some political experts say the right vote would split, allowing the NDP to take the seat. There are just over 24,000 eligible voters in the riding, and so far close to 2,000 people have already cast their ballots. We'll have the results for you from the riding as they become available. The province is investing more money to protect places of worship from hate crimes and vandalism. The Alberta Security Infrastructure Program originally offered $2 million annually to help religious facilities make security improvements. It will now distribute $5 million. Premier Jason Kenney says there's been an increase in hate crime targeting Christian communities since he first announced the program at an Edmonton mosque last June. Calgary's Mayor Jyoti Gondek says the disruption occurring every weekend in the city's Beltline neighborhood by anti-mandate marchers is a parade and not a protest, as it has no permits or licenses. Calgary police say the protests involved around 2,000 people, creating traffic chaos along 17th Avenue Southeast for more than an hour over the weekend. Gondek says it's time to face the fact that the protest requires more crowd control. Police are reviewing the actions of the parties to determine any potential enforcement. Toronto Blue Jays players continue to report to the team's development center in Dunedin, Florida. Spring training was delayed nearly a month as Major League Baseball and its Players Association hammered out a new collective bargaining agreement.
I'm not only the manager, I'm also a baseball fan, so I'm really excited about this year, you know, and I know you guys have seen, this is not a Zoom call anymore, so you've seen our guys, they all look great, and that just makes me feel even better.
Too important for me. Obviously, we got short spring training, but you know, always we had time to do what we had to do. Like I said, I've been spending my last 3 days trying to meet everyone, and the most hard thing for me is not the name, you know. But I want to respect the people, and I want to know their name. So, like you say, we got the chance to create that chemistry, like a team, like a teammate, brother. So, like I say, they are really good people, great group. So it's gonna be easy for me to create that chemistry.
It'd be nice having Blue Jays baseball once again. It almost felt a bit like spring outside today with the milder temperatures in our region, as we saw double digits on the plus side of things. And the spring-like temperatures will be sticking around. Complete weather details are on deck. Well, it was a beautiful spring-like day in the Windy City once again, as we saw over 10 degrees today. Not a lot of snow is left in our region. Tonight, partly cloudy with a low near 3 degrees. Tuesday, expect a mixture of sun and cloud and a high near 11. Wednesday, cooling off slightly to 8 degrees. The cloud should clear out on Thursday, making way for more sunshine and a high near 10. Pretty much the same picture on Friday with a high near 10 degrees again. Saturday, the mercury will climb to 12 degrees. A low pressure system returns on Sunday, bringing clouds and showers and a high of only 7. Checking the almanac now, the average high for this time of year is 5 degrees with an average low of -7. The highest temperature in this state was recorded in 1992 at 20 degrees, and the record low was a very chilly -29 in 1939. The sun rose at 7:47 and set at 7:34. Let's see how Tuesday is shaping up across the country now. Expect showers and 11 for both Victoria and Vancouver. It should be mainly cloudy and 5 degrees in Edmonton. Overcast and 11 for Calgary on Tuesday. A good chance of showers developing and 3 degrees for Regina. A mixture of sun and cloud and 3 as well for Saskatoon. Increasing cloudiness and 2 degrees for Winnipeg. In the central part of the country, expect snow mixed with rain and a high near 5 degrees for Toronto. Mainly sunny and 6 degrees for Ottawa. Cloudy and 2 degrees in Montreal. In Atlantic Canada, expect sun mixed with cloud and 9 degrees in Fredericton. Cloudy with showers and 7 degrees for Halifax. A good chance of flurries developing and a high of 5 in Charlottetown. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect light flurries and a high near 3 degrees on Tuesday. The head of Canada's largest private sector union is retiring amid what the group calls ongoing health issues. Unifor says National President Jerry Dias is stepping down after more than 8 years at the helm. Unifor expected Dias to retire in August, but says he notified the National Executive Board of his immediate retirement on Friday. Dias is also under investigation for allegedly breaching his union's constitution. The board will meet to determine next steps for leadership of the union. Unifor represents 315,000 workers across multiple sectors. CP Rail could get hit with a strike by more than 3,000 locomotive engineers, conductors, and other workers. Farmers are worried about disruptions in shipments of cattle feed and spring seeding supplies, while exporters say they cannot afford a strike after a year of supply chain disruptions and soaring gas prices. The Teamsters Canada Rail Conference's wages, benefits and pensions are the main issues of the dispute. Just as Canadians start traveling against skyrocketing oil prices due to Russia's invasion of Ukraine could make airfares even more expensive. Air Canada says fuel costs always factor into ticket prices. WestJet says it hasn't increased fares in response to soaring oil prices, while Transat says it may consider hedging. That's where airlines agree to buy oil in the future at a predetermined price to buffer against rising costs. Loblaw Companies says it has signed a deal to purchase Lifemark Health Group to help grow its business as a healthcare service provider. It says the deal with Audax Private Equity is worth $845 million in cash. Lifemark has more than 300 clinics across Canada providing physiotherapy, massage, chiropractic care, and rehabilitation services. The deal is subject to regulatory approvals, but Loblaw says it's expected to close in the second quarter of this year. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 281 points on the day to 21,180. The Dow was up 1 point to 32,945. The Rcmp 500 was down 31 points to 4173, and the Nasdaq was down 262 on the day to 12,581. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 632 to 103.01 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 7 cents to 466 US. Gold was up 11 cents to 1950.99 US an ounce, and silver was even on the day at 25.04 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $13.20 per bushel, barley's at $9.80, canola's at $25.31, and corn is at $11.94 per bushel. Live cattle were up $3.03 to $139.73, feeder cattle were up $4.43 to $162.40, and lean hogs were down 53 cents to $102.20. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 78.02 US. Recapping one of our top stories, talks between Russia and Ukraine ended without a breakthrough. Ukrainian officials said, however, that they will resume tomorrow following a technical pause. Meanwhile, Russian missiles hit a military base in western Ukraine on Sunday, killing at least 35 people. It was a facility that served as a crucial hub for cooperation between Ukraine and the NATO countries supporting its defense. Our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari is coming up shortly. She'll have the latest on the war between Ukraine and Russia and if other countries could be drawn into the conflict. As the war between Ukraine and Russia intensifies, it appears as though the Vladimir Putin regime is bringing in more Syrian fighters. To discuss this in more detail is our foreign affairs expert Lisa Daftari, joining us once again from Los Angeles. Lisa, according to sources within Syria, Russia was offering volunteers salaries ranging between $200 and $300 US to be security guards, in addition to recruiting mercenaries with wide privileges.
Yeah, so it's no surprise, right? This has been something we've watched throughout proxy wars in the Middle East, with Russia's involvement, of course, is to pay these, day fighters, mercenaries that are willing to come from all over the Middle East, whether it's Pakistan or Gaza and Syria and elsewhere, and they've done the dirty work. And we've seen this since the days of the Iranian Revolution back in 1979. So it's no surprise that Russia would say, well, I'm not going to bring in my A team into Ukraine. And that's what we've heard from sources up to now, that these are not Russia's best. And perhaps their failure to push forward is not just based on Ukraine's resistance, but also the fact that these are not the A-plus fighters that have gone in. So now Russia's thinking, well, I can recruit other fighters and pay them a low wage that would make them extremely happy compared to what they are getting back in the Middle East, and bring them into Ukraine. And based on internal documents, about 16,000 foreign fighters have given in their applications, and it said that these foreign fighters are coming from all over the Middle East. So we don't know if they're specifically from Syria. We don't have an exact count on the ones coming from Syria, but we do know that there is a serious recruitment process, and that makes sense, right? We're in the middle of this crazy civil war in Syria. We know that there are tons of mercenary fighters that are willing to go anywhere and fight for anything just to get a meal or just to get those few $100s. So it's a great place to recruit if you're Putin. So that's exactly what's going on. And remember, these are ruthless, brutal fighters from what we've seen throughout history, throughout the Middle East, and where they are sent to fight. So it's interesting to see Putin pull out, all these different pages from all the different handbooks of the modern wars that we have seen, all in this little place, Ukraine.
Lisa, with many European nations banning Russian oil, a number of countries are now turning to other nations for their energy needs. Now, on your website, I noticed the top 5 were Iran, Saudi Arabia, China, the United Arab Emirates, and the United States, but no mention of Canada.
Yes, exactly right. Well, if the United States, cleans up its act regarding energy independence, if they decide to be energy independent, well, obviously Canada needs to be brought in on that conversation, and it's a no-brainer for many people. And as you know, this was a major topic during the presidential election, and Donald Trump wanted us to be energy independent. He saw that as, again, a no-brainer. Why wouldn't we want to be energy independent? Why would we want to rely on other nations, particularly rogue nations, to get our oil and to be in a predicament like we are in today? So the list that we have at the far end, that's the top 5 nations where European nations will turn to pick up this slack of oil, some good actors, some bad actors. So that's the issue here. Because of what's going on with Russia, of course, China's going to be brought back into the conversation. It's going to be very difficult to curb a nation like China when you have Russia turning to them for all sorts of resources and help, and for them to get even closer than they already are. We know that China has grown close to Afghanistan and the Taliban. We know that they've gone closer to Pakistan. We know that they're getting closer and closer to the Iranian regime, to Venezuela, and of course now to Russia. So this, particularly the topic of energy and oil and gas, it does bring in a lot of new players that we don't want. They're not new, but I'm talking about a lot of new relationships that we would have wanted to curb if this had not happened.
Some reports from the Financial Times and Washington Post say Russia has asked China for military equipment since its February 24th invasion of Ukraine. But Lisa, China could face consequences if it helps Russia evade sanctions over Ukraine.
Yes, well, that's what Jake Sullivan, a national security advisor, is saying. I love the Monday morning reports because you have all these threats that the American leadership has made going on the Sunday news shows here in the United States on the major cable and basic networks to say, there's going to be major consequences, there's going to be major sanctions, there's going to be major finger pointing, and guess what? Putin hasn't cared one iota about any of these threats. So the newest threat is, well, don't go to China. There will be major consequences. Well, today, Jake Sullivan, the national security advisor, is meeting with his Chinese counterpart in Rome in order to discuss whether or not, China should get involved and the consequences based on the United States' point of view, what they will be and why China should not get involved. So he will try to make that case. Like you said in the beginning of your prompt, yes, Russia has turned to China. And I think when people read this headline, they think Russia needs help with military stuff. They have such a big beefed up arsenal of everything you could want, right? Kid in a candy store when it comes to military equipment. But it looks like they are turning to China. Now, whether this is in fact a need for weapons, whether it's in fact a need for oil, whether it's in fact a need for a relationship, what they're doing is making this transaction ironclad. They're making this relationship stronger than ever. So by turning to China, they're saying there's going to be a lot of business because we're losing business from everywhere else in the world. So if they're cutting us off, whether it's American Express and Visa, whether it's Google and Instagram as of this morning, we will come to you to pick up the slack. So there's going to be a lot more where that came from. So there is going to be a push and pull between China, Russia, and the United States to see whose influence will win. And I think we will know more after today's meetings.
Russian missiles pounded a military base in western Ukraine over the weekend, tragically killing 35 people, Lisa. Now, many view the facility as a crucial hub for cooperation between Ukraine and the NATO countries supporting its defense. Now, the offensive is moving perilously closer to the Polish border, which could be a real issue because Poland obviously is a NATO nation.
Yes, and that's one of the things that everybody's waiting to see, the NATO angle here, to see whether or not Article 5 of NATO, which states if any nation within NATO is struck, that means the entire alliance gets involved. If Article 5 is invoked, then the United States has already said, Jake Sullivan actually said over the weekend, that we will protect every inch of NATO territory. That means by accident or on purpose, if any assets of NATO, any of these smaller countries, any of their assets, any of their bases are hit, then I think we will see the World War III unleashed. There will be an escalation of sorts, unless it's an empty threat, and that is much worse than anything else here. But we're really stuck in a bad situation. Hal, the West is watching. Putin has the upper hand because we're watching, right? We're letting him take the next move and the next move and the next move, and meanwhile we keep threatening and saying one more step and that's it, one more step and that's it, and we're just waiting to see what Putin will do. Now, Putin, being the calculated statesman that he is, I've come to the point to say this doesn't even make sense anymore. The calculations just don't add up anymore. And I refuse to believe that he has lost his mind. I know a lot of people are saying, is he of sound mind? Yes, he is of sound mind. I think it is very dismissive and very dangerous to say that he has lost his mind and that these moves are just, his haphazard, knee-jerk reactions to anything. He knows exactly what he's doing. Now, the question becomes, what is the calculation? What is he getting other than just Ukraine? Because he's losing a lot more, right? So when you look at the pros and cons, there has to be more to this equation. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is just a talk about geopolitical strategy and how it has to make sense, right? If he is the calculated statesman that we know that he is, he will not withdraw without going further, meaning he will not give up, he will not surrender, he will not quit. If that is in fact the case, then what will be his next move? And if these threats, in fact, are not empty threats, then what will be the West's next move? There are a lot more questions than answers, Hal, right now. But like I said, the unfortunate part is that he does have the upper hand because we're standing by and watching what his next move will be here.
Lisa, we do know there are thousands of troops stationed in the Baltic states in Europe right now, American troops. So what would happen if Russian troops rolled into Poland, a NATO-protected country? Like you said, could we see World War III? Would those American troops be pulled into the fight right away?
Yeah, the American troops are actually stationed and more have been sent over to Poland. If you recall, once this did escalate, there were 11,000 troops that were sent over to Poland, and in addition to 5,000 that were already there, and an additional 500 have been sent over the last 10 days. So you do have a nice sizable, force there, and more than anything, they would get there if they needed to get there, if they needed to invoke Article 5 of NATO in protecting a NATO nation. Now, Kamala Harris has gone over to Poland to, in her way, confirm the relationship between NATO and the United States, and Poland specifically, and the United States. And she was cracking up all over the podium, but she did say a friend in need is a friend indeed. So that's what we got out of it. There's a lot more to say about Kamala's trip to Poland, but there was the symbolism of sending the Vice President of the United States over to Poland to say that we are in fact with you, we are united, and we have your back. That was exactly what I guess the point of the trip was, and in not so many words, that was what was portrayed. So I do believe that this will escalate if it does reach Poland, and unfortunately, we are inching closer and closer west. We're going in that direction. So I think the next 48 hours will be crucial to see how this goes.
Now, Russia, in its invasion of Ukraine, has also been taking some prisoners. Lisa, there are reports now that Russian forces have abducted a second Ukrainian mayor.
Yes, it's interesting how they are fixated on these local leaders. It seems as though the Ukrainians have been able to form these resistances and these pockets of resistance within their localities. And because of that, they are thinking, well, if we focus on the local leadership, we take them out, the Ukrainians will have a harder time, gathering, uniting, having that patriotism, having that, rallying around the flag. So this is the second time a mayor has been abducted. We've been told by Zelensky is in Ukraine. And that is the most incredible aspect of all of this, that he has not run away. He has not shied away or backed down. But what he has done is use diplomacy to reach out to the West to say, we need more help, we need you. He has now scheduled a call with members of Congress in order to make another plea, to make his case, to say that we need more help. Look, as much as, the United States believes they're doing their part, I think on the part of the Ukrainians, we could be doing a lot more. And they do need the West to do a lot more, including no-fly zones. That's what they will probably be pushing for, that and some aerial support, whether they get jets or aerial support in no-fly zones, or U.S. involvement, which I know a lot of people are against here. Obviously, any escalation is nothing to be taken lightly. So, a lot of calculations, a lot of nuance, and a lot of moving parts here on this Monday.
Iran attacked Iraq's northern city of Erbil over the weekend with a dozen ballistic missiles, Lisa. Many view this attack of the autonomous Kurdish region as an attack on the United States and its allies. Can you explain why?
Yes, well, let's start with the most obvious. The elephant in the room, as we like to say, is that we are at the negotiating table with the Iran regime, and maybe hours from now, if not days from now, there will be an Iran deal that will be announced, and that will free up billions of dollars. It will take the Iran regime's worst, most egregious, brutal terrorists off the terror list. It will take sanctions off of them, and again, release more money so that they can go out and do their terror games all over again. Now, why are we doing this? I don't know. Now, to add insult to injury, the Iranian regime is going around and shooting at our assets, shooting at our bases, shooting at our allies in the region. This is the Kurdish autonomous region of Erbil. And it is, in fact, an area where obviously U.S. bases were housed, and a very symbolic hit at the United States and at Israel. So this was not an accident. This is not something, and they took responsibility for it. They're extremely proud. They're flexing their muscles this morning, and it continues. All of this bad behavior continues. Now, we have talked about the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, which is acronymed as the JCPOA, as the Obama era 2015 Iran nuclear deal. Now, the only difference between then and now is that at least then, as bad as that deal was, and it was very bad, the Iran regime felt as though they had to at least pretend, or at least put on an airs about having some sort of reformed behavior, regarding terror and regarding human rights abuses and regarding their just rhetoric at the negotiating table. Now things are very different. They feel as though they can get away literally with murder. They can get away with, supporting terror, shooting at our assets. They have blood on their hands. They have the most brutal, they call him the butcher president, right, you see, in office, and they continue. And guess what? We are still pining for a deal. So nothing has changed there. But Hal, if we start connecting the dots on the foreign policy here, it's abysmal. And, world leaders, particularly the rogue ones, particularly the dictators and the tyrants, they notice. They notice when there's a weak leadership here in the White House in the United States, and they take advantage. And it's no coincidence that we have all these global, crises going on at the moment.
Lisa, Libya's former Interior Minister Fathi Bashagha was recently sworn in as his country's new premier as a step in what many are viewing as a move towards rebuilding their embattled nation. What do we know about this guy, Bashagha?
Yeah, this is a great move if he can unite the nation. And you have to remember, Libya is a very difficult nation to unite. And that's why we have seen over 10 years of civil war. We have seen, what maybe started out as an Arab Spring turn into this nightmare of tribalism and intersectional and fighting and, all these insurgencies coming up and, trying to defeat one another. With the removal of Gaddafi, you thought things would be just peachy, but that is a very Western view of things. At least Gaddafi was able to be the one glue, the one head of state. Even though there was still tribalism under Gaddafi, it was more of a cultural tribalism rather than a political one. Now we see, the worst kind of divide between different factions there on the ground. And of course, you have different nations in there. You have different sectors in there. You have different terror organizations in there. But this guy has been part of the parliament for a while. He has a lot of experience, and he's trying to unite and put away all sorts of violence. And that has been his mantra, to not use any violence, but to unite the nation and to say, let's look forward, let's have a future, and let's build this nation. And we wish them well. I hope that this is a place where we can give them support and the support that they need so that they can build the nation in their way and not import any of the Western lens of so-called democracy that we believe in, but what they need for their future.
Remains to see how his leadership plays out. Our foreign affairs expert, Lisa Daftari, thanks so much for joining us from Los Angeles.
My pleasure.
Many cities have similar issues, including crime and an opioid crisis, but not every city tackles the issue the same way. Joining us today to talk a bit more about what's happening here in Lethbridge is Lethbridge Police Chief Shaheen Medizadeh to discuss how he and his team at the LPS are tackling some of these very hot issues. Chief Medizadeh, welcome back to Bridge City News.
Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity.
You bet. Now, you spent over 30 years with the Rcmp, and now you're with the Lethbridge Police Service. What have been some of the biggest fundamental differences between working for a federal police force compared to a municipal one?
Well, in a nutshell, not much. It's police work is police work. Doesn't matter what stripe of you put on your pants and what type of badge you wear. It's all about providing a service to the community. And as you know, with the Rcmp, the only difference was that because it's a much larger organization with their hands into both federal and frontline policing, there were some different opportunities. But again, all police forces in this country, regardless of where they are or what badge they wear, their purpose is to serve the community and citizens.
So, Chief Medizadeh, what are your thoughts on the province potentially bringing in a provincial police force and no longer using the Rcmp?
Well, my opinion is really not important, really, in that front. But obviously, we know province is doing some studies in relation to, going in that direction. What I can offer, though, is as an Rcmp member for almost 32 years, I know Rcmp, not just in Alberta, but in any other province or territory that they serve, they provide great service to the citizens. And but again, it's a decision that the province has to make, and I don't think my opinion really matters.
Now, when he was Justice Minister, Casey Medu asked you to submit a report a couple of times discussing how the Lethbridge Police Service has changed, more accountability, transparent, and have a better culture. Is that settled now? Is the province happy with your reports?
Well, we obviously, when the report was submitted, we had to send it a second time because minister wanted more information into the different areas. So which we added those and resubmitted the report. But when you look at the report, Al, we've made that public, the highlight of the report. The report wasn't about stuff that we were just starting. This stuff we had started a long time before minister got engaged and basically gave us that direction. We basically compiled all the initiatives that we were already working on based on the gaps we had seen within the organization, both internal and external, to try to come up with solutions. And our report is compilation of all the initiatives that we had already started to assure the minister and his office that this department wasn't a department that existed in 2017, 2018. We are moving forward. And today I'm very happy to say that we have moved forward. There were some unfortunate incidents during that time period that we're still dealing with, and they're under hearings and investigations. But those incidents don't define our organization today, and we have moved forward. And from the beginning, I've also asked people to just move forward with us, and we certainly reflect on the past, the mistakes that were made, the misconducts that were exhibited, but I'm more focused on looking at today and tomorrow versus staying in the year 2018. By me doing that, it's not going to serve this community or any citizen anything.
So has the province said to you specifically there are more issues that need addressing, or do you think it's all been covered now?
I believe we've covered that. From my perspective, our problems in Lethbridge, with Lethbridge Police, we're not unique. Unfortunately, this kind of behavior have been exhibited other places as well. In our case, it was more political, but we've taken huge measures to actually move forward to make sure that behavior like that, basically we have clear policies, we have clear protocols to make sure our employees don't engage in those type of activities. But we all know humans, I can't guarantee that nobody ever does, same as any other police department. I'm sure you agree that you can read these things for other police departments when people commit acts of misconduct. I think the important thing is when we actually identify those, we deal with them swiftly and hold people accountable. But again, holding people accountable, it has to be done through a legal process, respecting other people's rights and everyone's rights, because everyone, even if you're a criminal, you still deserve to be treated with respect and through the legal processes we have in this country. At no time we can really go outside of those posts, because if we do, it's actually going to give those people who commit acts of misconduct a way out, because we are not respecting their rights.
What were your thoughts when Casey Medu was blasted for calling the Edmonton police chief to chat about a distracted driving ticket? Now, what would you have said to Medu if he would have called you and said, hey, I received this distracted driving ticket here in Lethbridge, can we talk about it?
Well, I don't really want to comment on that, because as you know, even the nature of the call, etc., that's under investigation. But in my case, as a chief of police, if someone calls me about a ticket, my quick response to them would be paid. I've got myself, I have to admit it, photo radar tickets that I just go pay. And really at the end, that's just the way it goes. But again, I can't really comment on that specific incident because I wasn't involved. And as I've said before, I'm sure you heard me say that before, even when a lot of the media was attacking us, and even some of our prominent citizens here, all I ask people is just wait for the facts to come out. And I believe in this case, that's the exact same position I'm going to take. Is there's an investigation going on, and I think we all need to wait for the facts to come out, and then we can make our own assumptions based on those facts.
So Chief Medizadeh, let's talk about crime here in our city in Lethbridge. What kind of crime are you seeing specifically right now, and how much of it is tied in with our drug crisis?
Well, majority of the crime that's really brings us to, brings our crime up are basically property crimes, and more important than that, opportunity crimes. And these are directly tied with the drug crisis and addiction issues and homelessness, etc., that we see in the city. One thing I'm very proud to say that from the department perspective, first of all, I came here August of 2020, and in 2020, as you know, we saw a 3% reduction in crime, and that trend has continued in 2021. I think we are going to see almost an 8% reduction in crime in our city. That's reflective on two fronts. Number one is obviously what the department is doing. We are more intel-led in our policing approach. We are using our analytical and intelligence much better to be more focused on where the police needs to be and who we need to target. So that's the policing kind of enforcement piece, if you want to call it that we've changed a lot. The second piece, I believe that I owe that to the citizens of this great city, because they are actually listening to us and safeguarding their property a little bit more. We're still seeing a lot of opportunity crimes in the city, but we are also seeing a little bit of a decline on that front as well. So I owe it to all our citizens, and I hope more and more citizens really get on that partnership with us to safeguard their property. It doesn't eliminate crime, but we believe that the more we work together, we can really reduce the crime rate in this city.
Chief, what are your thoughts on the federal drug courts? Do you feel that they're actually making a difference in the lives of those who are trying to get clean?
The federal drug courts actually have been in existence in Calgary, Edmonton, and Lethbridge. We just saw them starting I think in November of 2020. So it's at the infancy stage in Lethbridge, but I know with the long-term approach from the other cities, they have proven to be very effective. One thing I can offer for Lethbridge, right now we have 8 people who have gone through the program and many more who are on the list to get into that program. And the 8 people who've actually gone in the program, we haven't seen them again. It's working effectively for them. These courts actually are providing people an opportunity to get out of that lifestyle, but more importantly, providing them with skills, housing, etc., to get them on the right track in life. And we certainly welcome that. And again, but again, it's only just been not a long time since we've had these courts in our city, but so far we see positive way forward on that.
You know, we've been in the COVID-19 pandemic now for over 2 years. I've talked to a lot of first responders that say, you know what, we're feeling stressed out. We're feeling burnt out right now. It's really affecting us, you know, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. What have you seen with your police officers? Are they suffering from burnout or any PSD as a result?
Well, it's been difficult, like for our department, like any other police department in this country. Policing is a business that we can't just stop working just because of pandemic and COVID. 911 calls are made. The expectation from the public is for police to show up and give them the service they deserve. But it's been difficult because our officers are human beings, same as other people. We've had officers who have had to isolate and go through the process of getting better because of the virus. That puts a lot of pressure on the people who are working, and also there's a whole bunch of other elements on that because in as much as police is required to safeguard people's health, etc., we also the people who have to go ensuring that everyone's rights are protected. When you look at the protests that are going on right now, we want to ensure that our citizens have a right to peaceful protest and getting their message out, but at the same time safeguarding the safety of other people to make sure other people's rights aren't stepped on. So it's a balancing act. So the resource pressure is one element, but there are other challenges that come in our world when you're dealing with this sort of environments, how they're actually putting more stress on the police. But I'm quite proud of this team because we've been able to provide very effective relationship and policing, even in cases of when there are protests, etc., to work effectively with the organizers to make sure they're respectful and they're peaceful, get their message out, and at the same time not disturb other people. And this team has done a fantastic job balancing all those things to serve every citizen.
So what help is readily available to your officers who may be suffering from PTSD and burnout?
We have a group of psychologists right in our city to provide immediate assistance to anyone who asks for help right away. We have an amazing chaplain who's constantly in communication with our police officers and every employee here to make sure to listen to them and provide the support that they need. And we have obviously many different programs within the organization for people when they identify someone is not feeling well and they're not doing well, they can kind of reach out and put a hand on their shoulder and try to guide them in the right direction. As you know, we even introduced an wellness app last year on all the phones that our officers have, just to check their own temperature at times to see how they are doing. Mental health is a condition that until the individual doesn't, if they take an active role in getting the help they need at the right time, that's the best approach to deal with mental health. Unfortunately, sometimes when the department comes across a situation that the officer needs help, at times it's too deep into the issue and we have to obviously go wait much longer for our employees to get back and to be healthy again. But no efforts are actually is like we continue to provide whatever we can to provide the assistance they need. But my message to all our employees has always been, they need to also look after their own health and recognize that. And when they put their hand up, we are all here to help them out and provide the support they need.
Chief Medizadeh, we only have a couple of short moments left here, but I wanted to ask you about your relationship with the Lethbridge Police Service and the Blood Tribe Police and the Sage Clan, and how important that is here in southwestern Alberta. Tell me a bit about those relationships.
We have an amazing relationship with Blood Tribe Police. I've met with previous chiefs and the new chief, Chief Ironshirt. We meet regularly, every month actually, to discuss how we can help each other, the two departments, because we serve many citizens that actually go back and forth between the two communities. And certainly we have an amazing relationship that continues to get better. As far as Sage Clan goes, they're a community organization that are providing service and help to our downtown group, and we certainly our watch program is quite connected with them, and we certainly appreciate and respect what they do for the city.
Lethbridge Police Chief Shaheen Medizadeh, thanks so much for your time today.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and have a wonderful day.
You as well. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.